Hey guys, Addie Gundry here in the RecipeLion test kitchen. I hope you guys joined us last week, but if you haven't, welcome for this time. It's Thursday at 2 o'clock, which you know, and we are going to be live every Thursday at 2 p.m. making a recipe from one of our cookbooks. So let me talk about the cookbooks. We currently have 6 cookbooks out for you to purchase. The most recent 2 are retro recipes from the 50s and 60s. And today, we're going to make a recipe from this book. We are going to make easy crab puffs, one of my favorite appetizers to make for any sort of entertaining occasion, whether it's hanging out with your girlfriends, a book club, you name it. These are super easy to make, and we're gonna do it together in the kitchen. But before we start, I'm gonna tell you about our other books. We also have essential slow cooker recipes. This just came out in January. And hiding behind this book, I should probably introduce the editor of these books, Jessica. So she's going to help me out today because Facebook Live gets a little complicated when all of you guys start asking questions and I'm trying to cook, so she helps me navigate the situation. I'm not a pro yet. Anyways, so we have 4 other books that we've put out. Family Favorite Casseroles was the first one that came out with no-bake desserts, which is super fun and super easy. What I love about it is that obviously you don't have to turn the oven on, so it's fun to make in the summer and super kid friendly. The easiest things to make, and so you can get messy in the kitchen with your kiddos. We also have everyday dinner ideas, easy recipes for weeknight meals, whether you're on the go, got things going on. This is a really easy book to follow along with. And the last one is easy cookie recipes. 103 recipes in all of these books, and so combined we have over 600 recipes here. You can purchase them on Amazon, or you can go to RecipeLion and search for our books, and hopefully you have one at home. And if you don't and have questions, let us know. We're happy to answer anything. But before we get started, I wish you guys could smell in here, because aside from making these crab puffs, I'm also making carnitas in the Instant Pot, and it smells so good. So anyways, maybe next week we can do something a little out of the box. If you guys have any suggestions for what you want us to cook in here, we are all ears. Just leave us some comments. If there are things you want to learn about, please let us know, and we're happy to come on live and talk it through with you. The cool thing about being live is that you watch me make mistakes, you watch me exactly how it would be at home, and so it's not an edited video, and you feel like you're part of the kitchen, which you guys should feel part of the kitchen, because again, this is the RecipeLion test kitchen, and I'm Addie Gundry. This is Jessica, the amazing editor, and let's get started. Okay, so easy crab puffs. That's what we're gonna make. I'm gonna leave this up here in case you guys wanna check it out. But once we are done with this Facebook Live video, we will add the link, and so you guys can find this recipe on RecipeLion.com, and you can make them at home. So the first thing we're going to do is make the filling. And I already made a little filling so I can show you the consistency, because earlier today, I actually just now made these. This is what the end result will be. So they're these cute little puff pastry crab puffs. A little 2-bite appetizer. I just made them right before we went live. It's been one of those crazy days, but I'm feeling better. Last week I was a little sick. I'm healthy as can be today. So what we're going to do is make the filling, and this is what it's going to look like. I wanted to keep some to show you, because I'm going to show you the consistency. I'm going to use a glove, but you don't have to use a glove, of course. If you're at home, do whatever you want. But it's sort of this creamy cheese with crab meat consistency, which we're about to make, but I want you to kind of just get an idea of how it's going to look. And like I said, we're making these with crab, but you could definitely use other types of fillings. So I'm going to show you how to make it with crab, and then we can talk about if you want to use shredded pork or shredded chicken. If you don't want it to have any sort of meat, you could just add in a little more cheese, maybe some shredded cheddar, and that way you just have a little cheese puff. You can season them with all sorts of things. We use lemon juice and Worcestershire sauce. I I can barely say that word. I don't know if you guys can. But again, maybe you add in a little Tabasco or a little Cholula, something spicy. There's really endless possibilities, which is what I love about making these at home. Because a lot of times when I make them, I just roll out the puff pastry, I cut my squares, and then I divide the recipe, and I make some with crab, I make some with chicken, some with just cheese, and that way everyone at your party can indulge in some way. I started Whole30 2 days ago, which is sort of a cool diet, and we have a lot of Whole30 recipes on RecipeLion. So I'm not supposed to eat these, but I'm going to eat one today with you guys. So just secret safe with you. So, okay, here's what we're gonna do. We have our lump crab in this bowl, and really what you can buy this at any grocery store. It's just real crab meat. Comes in a container like this that's 8 ounces, and it's actually, it's a really great taste. It's fresh. It's only $11.99 here in the outside of Chicago, so it's sort of an inexpensive way to eat real crab meat, and it tastes great. So another little quick shot if you're looking for a good crab option. And so I have some crab in here now, and all we're gonna do is start to kind of season that crab. So we're gonna add lemon zest, which is great. Of course, some salt and pepper. And again, you can find the quantities for all of this on our website. We're gonna put in our lemon juice and Worcestershire sauce. We're gonna put in a couple sliced green onions, a little bit of sour cream. We're just gonna stir that up. I mean, honestly, right now, you could just eat this with the spoon because it's just deliciously seasoned crab. It kind of reminds me of chicken salad. Now, before I add the cream cheese, which the cream cheese is really sort of the binder of this to get this consistency, and that's what the filling is really made of. It's really sort of a cream cheese crab puff. I'm going to add garlic, and what the recipe calls for is to mince garlic, but I have a trick for you. Instead of using a knife and having your hands smell like garlic, you can actually just use a microplane grater. So this is what I grated the lemon zest with. You can see some of my lemon zest on here. But if you just put it over the bowl and go like this, it's just a nice way. Careful not to hurt yourself. These get really quite sharp as you get close to the bottom. But it's a nice way to just grate the garlic, which is similar to mincing it. And you just scoop that out and add it to your mixture. Okay, now that our crab is nicely seasoned, we're gonna add our cream cheese. And I'm just making a half recipe here. Usually the recipe calls for an entire 8-ounce block of cream cheese, but because we're doing this together, we don't need an entire one. And my cream cheese has been out at room temperature for about at least an hour, and you can see it's still a little hard to manipulate. So if you want to take your cream cheese out of the refrigerator, a good hour or two beforehand, that way you can mix this a little easier, but as you can see, it will come together.
Did you rinse the crab when you took it out of the container?
That's a great question coming from the stranger holding the camera here. That's Tom.
Actually, that's from Nancy Ramirez.
Oh, hey Nancy. Tom is holding the camera and just asked me your great question, and yes, I did. So it comes, you can see sort of the juices on the bottom, which is just what helps, keep it fresh and preserve it. But what I do is just dump the whole thing in a colander and kind of rinse it. I don't rinse it too long because you don't want actually a lot of that flavor to get out. You don't want to dump it with water or soak it. But just a nice rinse is always a good thing, just to kind of, freshen it up, get it ready. So as you can see, it's coming together nicely. Once you get to this point, I also start to use my hands because sometimes that's easier than a spatula. But I use gloves at home too, because that way I don't have to wash my hands as much.
We have another question from Nancy who wants to know, can I use the whipped cream cheese?
Sure, absolutely. And you can definitely use, whipped cream cheese, and you can use, I know it sells in the same block with, I think it's 1/3 of the fat or something. It's like a lighter version. Definitely use that too if you want it a little lighter. Because as you can see, there's really not much in these. So if you have the lighter version of cream cheese and the crab, it's not, it's not that heavy of a little puff. Puff pastry is just butter and flour. So that's sort of a nice way to make a lighter version, or at least you can tell your friends, like, oh, this is a light puff, you know, and that way people eat more. So, yes. All right. I'm going to show you now our next mission here. So this is puff pastry, and I put a little flour on my surface just to make sure it doesn't stick. What I did was I bought it yesterday, and it comes in the freezer. It comes in, there's 2 sheets in one box, but I put the whole the box with both sheets in the refrigerator yesterday so that it was thawed but still cold. So today I pulled it out about 2 hours before, and now as you can see, it's nice. Tom can get in here. It's nice sort of dough consistency. And the purpose of making sure you have it thawed nicely is that if you take it right out of the freezer, it'll crack and these layers can break because it comes folded like that, and you don't want these seams to break when you take it out. All we're gonna do is just roll this out. It already looks really thin, which it is, but we actually want it a little thinner because you'll see when we start stuffing with crab. Now, Jessica, make sure I'm correct on this. Mm-hmm. Where are we going to show our friends the link to this recipe?
So you will be able to check the RecipeLion website.
Okay.
And that should be up hopefully later this afternoon or tomorrow, and you'll be able to get this recipe for free. So
great. And if for whatever reason you guys can't find it, you can just, send us a message or send me a message on my Instagram account. I'll write back, and we'll make sure you guys get the recipe, okay? Okay, so as you can see, I didn't roll it out too much, but it is a little thinner. It's sort of easier to, play with. And you don't need a ton of flour. Probably a little too much, but that's okay. Now, I'm gonna use a cool pizza cutter. You definitely can use a knife, but I found this in the kitchen and thought, let's use this. And all we're gonna do is cut some squares. And as you can see, my squares they're not very big, but you could make them bigger or smaller. So I'll show you how we make these puffs, and you'll be able to see that you can kind of decide what size you want. You can also see that that's kind of a rectangle, that's kind of a square. I didn't do, I just did this by my eyeballs, and it doesn't have to be perfect because they all come out a little oblong, which I always like because then it looks like you made the recipe versus that you bought it at Trader Joe's and popped it in the freezer and then you put it in the oven. This looks really handmade if they're a little misshapen. So, okay, here's our first one. I'm gonna put a glove on just because I need another glove. Jessica, do we have any questions while I find another glove?
We don't have any questions right now, but can you talk about where would you want to serve these?
Sure. So, like I said, I think I'm in a book club in my town, and we meet once a month with some wine and appetizers, and this would be a great thing to bring. What I love about these, which just remind me of, is that you can eat them room temperature. So it's not like, oh, pigs in the blanket come out quick, they're hot, they're better hot. Nachos, they come out, they're better hot. I made nachos the other day when we were watching a game, and after a half hour, it's like, oh, let's put these back in the oven because they're not as good when they're cold. These are awesome warm, and they're awesome room temperature. So it's a really easy appetizer to bring to a dinner party too, because you don't have to worry about, oh, I brought this, but we need to heat it up or anything. So I bring it to a dinner party, book club, girls' night. Again, if you make them, I don't think my husband would like the crab ones because it's probably too fancy. But if you made them with shredded chicken and some Tabasco or some cheese, this is a great, afternoon snack on a Sunday. So you definitely can kind of adapt the recipe, which is what I love about a lot of these recipes. Because they're so simple and easy to do, you can use your own creativity to kind of mix it up and make them your own way. And this is a perfect example. So I'm gonna make one. Come on in here, Tom. So we're just gonna take about a tablespoon of crab mixture. You'll kind of get a good feel for it. And we're gonna put it right in there, maybe a little more. And this glove is a little large. We're ditching the gloves, you guys, okay? We're all friends here. I'm gonna use my hand. Okay, so then what you're gonna do is just you're gonna fold like a little envelope. So this corner is gonna go in the middle. then this corner is going to meet it, like that. And then this corner, and then this corner. So you kind of make this little pouch. You just fold, you put your filling in and you fold the corners in and meet them in the middle. So once you do that, you can put them on just a cookie sheet with parchment paper. I use parchment paper to make sure they don't stick to the pan. And we continue to make all of them. And then you brush the top with egg wash, which is just an egg and a little bit of water that you beat. And the reason for this is that you're putting fat, essentially, it's like rubbing melted butter, on top of it, and that's what will make them nice and golden brown. So the egg here is what actually gets the puff pastry this pretty brown color. What doesn't have egg, like the sides, you'll see is sort of pale. So that's kind of another fun way to just make them come out pretty. So we can make another one.
We do have a question from Caitlin. She says, whenever I work with puff pastry, I end up tearing holes in it.
Oh.
Any way to avoid or fix that?
Yes. I think that the trick, because I do too, which I sort of mentioned earlier, is that you really have to let it come to room temperature. And I am the most impatient cook you'll ever meet. And so I take it out and I'm like, okay, 5 minutes, it's ready. And I roll it and then it tears, or then the minute I unfold it, that crease cuts and it drives me nuts. So you really just have to let it sit. And once it comes to room temperature, I mean, it's dough. I mean, look at that. Where you're probably thinking, oh my gosh, I've never seen puff pastry like that, because you've probably always had it pretty cold, especially because you store it in the freezer. But again, the night before, put it in the fridge, and it will keep just fine like that, and then bring it out even a few hours before. You know, it's certainly not going to go bad. And let it just rest on your counter with a little flour. The reason to let it rest with flour is that it won't get sticky. You don't want to come back 2 hours later in your hot kitchen and it's stuck to the surface. But as you can see down here, Tom, if you want to, I mean, once you have a little flour, this stuff is very hardy, you know? So that's the key. Little pocket. Kind of reminds you of a little Valentine.
Does it matter how much you fold the dough over?
No. So what's kind of fun too is, as you can see, some of these are like, I could pull out a perfect one, which I don't even know if we have a perfect one. But what you can see is that some of the ends kind of kept together, some pulled apart. You know, they kind of are all, here's a good example. These 3 ends were folded in, and this one popped open in the oven. But that's okay, because it's a crab puff. It's supposed to look kind of fun. I'm on a diet, like I said, but I might just have to eat this and try it. So hold on. It's delicious. And does it matter that one didn't fold over? No, okay.
We have a couple more questions.
Right.
Beth Ann says, I bet this recipe would be perfect for Super Bowl parties. Do you have any other favorite appetizer recipes?
Ooh, that's a great question. Well, I do, and I'm going to wash my hands really quickly. That's a great question. And one of my favorite things to do for a big game is to make things in the slow cooker, because that way I don't have to just sit in the kitchen. I can put stuff in and go enjoy the game as well. So, in the slow cooker book, and you guys can find some of these recipes on RecipeLion as well, we have things like buffalo chicken sandwiches, which is one of my favorite. This is obviously a big sandwich that maybe you'd have at a barbecue, but what I do is I make buffalo chicken in my slow cooker, and then I get the little tiny slider buns. You can just get them at the grocery store next to the hamburger buns. And then I serve these little kind of sandwiches, or get the Hawaiian rolls, you know those, and kind of put the chicken in those. So I do little kind of sliders. Another thing that's great is, of course, 7-layer dip is a great game day food. Who doesn't love that? And that's something that can just sit out for a while. I mean, these nachos look like game day to me. Oh, here's some buffalo chicken sliders, like I just mentioned. Party mix, make your own. But what, you know, it's kind of crazy. You just asked about game day recipes. Would you believe all of these come from a slow cooker book? Awesome. You guys should buy it.
We have a couple more questions.
Okay.
So Lana wanted to know if she could use a scoop instead to
Yes.
make the puff pastry.
Lana, that's a good idea. Don't use your hands or your spatula. You actually are brilliant. I didn't even think of a scoop. And I have scoops for just like a half, a teeny one for cookies. That's it. Use a scoop, everyone. When you make these, use a scoop. Good idea, okay? Love it. And then actually they'll be consistent, unlike mine, which are a little all over the place, but it's fun.
And then Noelle wants to know, do you have any good recipes for people who want to diet?
Oh, well, this is not exactly one of them. Good recipes for people who want to diet. Well, there's a whole bunch of salads on our RecipeLion page. Thinking, what do you think, Jessica? What about some of our books? I guess in dinner.
Well, we do have a cookbook coming out called the Light Up Cookbook. That will be out in May. So, keep an eye out for that. So we'll have a lot of great ideas in that. It's not quite out yet.
Another thing is, a lot of the recipes you find on our website and on Facebook, you can adapt. And so, like I said, just taking out cream cheese and putting in the lighter cream cheese, or if you see a salad that has a ranch dressing, use balsamic. A lot of times when I try and kind of diet, which is hard to do in my profession, it's more that I use a recipe that I like, and I just try and kind of remove things or change things a bit. Because you'd be surprised, when you follow a recipe, there's a lot of stuff you can kind of change up, and something simple as taking the cheese out, or just removing some of the heavier items will certainly help. But we have a ton of salad recipes, and we have some lighter, a lot of copycat versions of other things that are lighter. So that's kind of a good place to look.
Fave Healthy Recipes is another website that we have that has some lightened up versions of all of your favorite
have you guys
foods.
been to that site, favehealthyrecipes.com? Basically, there you go. What was your name again, sir?
Noelle.
Noelle. Oh, Noelle. Never mind, not a sir. I was looking at Tom and got confused. Well, there you go. Go to favehealthyrecipes.com. That's a great one. We do have a gluten-free website as well, which I always think healthy when I think gluten-free. So, yeah. All right, I'm going to keep making these. Obviously I've made these ahead of time because I talk too much that I can't actually get them in the oven and out in time. I need a scoop now.
Do you have any styling tips for, if you're putting these out for a party?
Yeah, that's actually a great question. So what's cool about them is that, when you make them, they look like these little fragile pillows. But when they come out, they're very hardy. And so you don't necessarily need to have them in one layer, on a tray. You can stack them. Or another thing I like to do is I take a bowl, sort of a wide bowl, and put a little toweling or parchment paper and kind of just dump a whole bunch in, almost like popcorn. And it's sort of a fun way to encourage people to just grab. I like making sort of elegant treats in a really easy way that also people feel like is, just casual. I think everyone has a little more fun when it's not as laid out and all that kind of stuff. So I think one way to serve this would be in a big bowl, on the table, and let people just kind of grab the puffs. So that's really all we're doing. I can show you how to egg wash, but I lost my brush. So here's an idea. The other easy way to egg wash, if you can't find a brush, I'm really just making this up right now. I have done this before, but I don't know where my brush is. Maybe Tom took it. We're going to take this paper towel, and this is a great way to do it. Move this. And you just sort of dip this in, and it kind of absorbs, but it actually doesn't absorb the egg completely. And it's kind of a mess-free way to coat it. And like I said, everywhere you coat it, that's where it's going to be nice and golden brown. So this is we just did a little hack here on how to brush your puff pastry. And if you have time, which I know not many of you guys have time to watch these bake for 20 minutes, but it's kind of fun if you turn the oven light on, and when you watch them bake, they'll start to kind of like open and puff like little flowers. And so when I was waiting for these to bake, I would check in our oven and see them kind of like bloom, which is sort of fun. What else? Let's answer one more question, then we'll let you guys go buy your books and make these recipes over the weekend.
So how far apart should you have each of these puff pastries?
Good question. I actually baked 3 by however many, 4 maybe. So you definitely, they can be pretty close. They're not like cookies. They won't really, if they expand at all, they kind of stay. Here you'll see the difference here. They'll stay in their little place.
Mm-hmm.
Cool?
Yeah, I think that's about it.
So next week, Thursday at 2 p.m. I will be back in the test kitchen. I'm always in the test kitchen. And we are going to be making something from the Slow Cooker book. We are going to be making the bacon cheeseburger dip, which Beth Ann, if you're looking for a good recipe for any sort of game day, this is a good one right here. And we're going to serve it with chips, with pita chips. We're going to use celery and carrots. I don't know, we're going to go crazy. So we're going to make this on Thursday at 2 p.m. And stay tuned for more Facebook Live, your chance to enter and win some giveaways, which is really exciting. Do you want to comment on that?
Yeah, so if you've tuned in and you've commented or liked the post, we're going to be giving away a signed cookbook of your choice to one lucky reader, and we'll have different prizes and giveaways coming up for future Facebook Lives.
Yes, and remember, use a scoop. That was a great idea. See you next time.
Bye.